Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Jayo Radha Vallabha Shri Radhe Jayo Jagannatha Baladeva Jayo Subhadra Baladeva Jayo Subhadra Jayo Gauranitai Jayo Gauranitai Prabhupada Jayo Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajakaacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrind ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Om. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to His Divine Grace. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome all of you for today's discussion of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. We are reading from Canto 7, Chapter 2, titled as Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons. We are reading from verse number 23. We'll read from 23 to 26. 26, yes, because it's all connected in one sense. So 23 is the verse on the board. Yatam bhasa prachalata taravopi chala iva chakshusha brahmyamanena drishyate chalateva bhuhu yatham bhasa prachalata taravopi chala iva chakshusha brahmyamanena drishyate chalateva bhuhu yatham bhasa prachalata taravopi chala iva chakshusha brahmyamanena drishyate chalateva bhuhu. Prabhuji. Yathambasa prachalata taravopi chala iva manena yathambasa prachalata taravopi chala iva chakshusha brahmyamanena drishyate chalateva bhuhu yatham bhasa prachalata taravopi chala iva chakshusha brahmyamanena drishyate chalateva bhuhu. Matajis. Yatham bhasa prachalata ropi chala iva chakshusha brahmyamanena drishyate chalateva bhuhu yatham bhasa prachalata taravopi chala iva brahmyamanena drishyate chalateva bhuhu. Yatha, just as, ambhasa, by water, prachalata, moving, taravaha, the trees on the bank of the river, api, also, chalaha, moving, iva, as if, chakshusha, by the eye, brahmyamanena, moving, drishyate, is seen, chalati, moving, iva, as if, bhuhu, the ground. Generally in Sanskritam, when you have a word ending with a dot in the bottom, it reverberates the previous letter. So in this case, it is BHUH. So it is, you have to pronounce it as HU. So it is boohu. So that's why you will see that sound, the previous letter reverberating. If it's I, it will be he, like that. So it is bhu-hu. It's not bhu, it is bhu-hu. It becomes like that. So there's a general grammar rule for the pronunciation of certain words. But that's only done when the word ends in the line. It's not pronounced like that when the word is in the middle. So some grammar rules. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Because of the movements of the water, the trees on the bank of a river, when reflected on the water, seem to move. Similarly, when the eyes move because of some mental derangement, the land appears to move also. Purport. Sometimes, because of mental derangement, the land appears to be moving. A drunkard, for example, or a person with heart disease sometimes feels that the land is moving. Similarly, the reflections of trees in a flowing river also appear to move. These are the actions of Maya. Actually, the living entity does not move. Sthanur achaloyam. The living entity does not take birth or accept death. But because of the transient, subtle and gross bodies, the living entity appears to move from one place to another or be dead and gone forever. As the great Bengali Vaishnava poet Jagadananda Pandita has said, Pishachi paile yena mati channa haya maya grasta jivera haya se bhava udaya. According to the statement from the Prema Vivarta, when a living entity is conditioned by material nature, he is exactly like a person haunted by a ghost. We do not know what that means. One should therefore understand the fixed position of the spirit soul and how he is carried away by the waves of material nature to different bodies and different situations under lamentation and hankering. One achieves the success of life when he understands the constitutional position of his self and is undisturbed by the conditions created by material nature. Prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha. So I'll read 24 to 26 as well. Evam gunair brahmyamane manasya vikala puman yati tat samayatam bhadre hyalingo lingavan iva. In the same way, O my gentle mother, when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, the living entity, although freed from all the different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, think that he has changed from one condition to another. As stated in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 10.84.13, Yasyatma buddhi kunapetri dhatuke swadhi kalatradishu bhauma idyadihi yattirtha buddhi shalilena karhichit janeshva abhigneshu sa eva gokharaha. A human being who identifies the body made of three elements as the self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of his birth worshipable, and who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to bathe rather than to meet men of transcendental knowledge, there is to be considered like a cow or an ass. Although Hiranyakashipu was a great demon, he was not as foolish as the population of the modern world. Something we will discuss on this topic, actually, very important. Hiranyakashipu had clear knowledge of the spirit soul and the subtle and gross bodies. But now we are so degraded that everyone, including the exalted scientists and philosophers and other leaders, is under the bodily conception of life, which is condemned in the Shastras. So, sa eva gokharaha, such persons are nothing but cows and asses. Hiranyakashipu advised his family members that although the gross body of his brother Hiranyaksha was dead and they were aggrieved because of this, they should not lament for the great soul of Hiranyaksha who had already attained the next destination. Atma, the spirit soul, is always unchanged. Avikalah puman. We are spirit souls, but when carried away by mental activities, manodharma, we suffer from so-called material conditions of life. This generally happens to non-devotees. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahat gunaha. Non-devotees may possess exalted material qualities, but because they are foolish, they have no good qualifications. The designations of the conditioned soul in the material world are decorations of the dead body. The conditioned soul has no information of the spirit and its exalted existence beyond the effects of material condition. 25 and 26. Esha atma viparyaso hyalinge linga bhavana esha priya priyarya yogo viyoga karma samshritihi sambhavascha vinashascha shokascha vividha smritah avivekascha chintacha vivekasmritirevacha. In his bewildered state, the living entity, accepting the body and the mind to be the self, considers some people to be his kinsmen and others to be outsiders. Because of this misconception, he suffers. Indeed, the accumulation of such concocted material ideas is the cause of suffering and so-called happiness in the material world. The conditioned soul, thus situated, must take birth in different species and work in various ways of consciousness, thus creating new bodies. This continued material life is called samsara. Birth, death, lamentation, foolishness, and anxiety are due to such material considerations. Thus, we sometimes come into a proper understanding and sometimes fall again to wrong conception of life. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishna Vamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari. Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yam pravrajantam anupeta krityam dvaipayana viraha katara ajuhava putreti tanmayataya taravo bhinedu stham sarva bhuta hridayam munimanatosmi. So Hare Krishna. So welcome all of you. We've been reading this chapter for a while now. And here we see the demon Hiranyakashipu is preaching a philosophy of Vedanta. So this is quite bewildering sometimes. Bhagavatam throws us these surprises sometimes, you see. In other practices, we clearly have a distinction between the evil and the good, and the demon and the divine. But here you will see even the demon is preaching philosophy, and good philosophy actually. So sometimes Bhagavatam shakes completely the mundane conception of religiosity. Bhagavatam is such a literature. Dharma projhita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayonmulanam Śrīmad Bhāgavate mahamuni krite kim va parairishvara sadhyoridhyavarudhyatetra kritibihi sushrushrubhistatkshanat dharma projhita kaitavatra paramo. So, Bhagavatam renounces all types of mundane religiosity and always preaches us the highest philosophy at all times. It does not matter how Bhagavatam reveals this philosophy. Sometimes through the mouth of a demon, sometimes through the mouth of an animal also. You see, in National Geographic, they show animals. In Bhagavatam also you have a lot of animals. Gajendra is preaching. Gajendra is an elephant. And an elephant preaches now. You see? So you see elephant preaching. You see sometimes a python preaching, a snake. Sometimes a tree preaching. Sometimes sages. So you will see philosophy and the absolute truth is taught to us in so many different ways, thereby shaking the foundational aspect of mundane religiosity. So Bhagavatam, so many lessons come about in this section also. So for us as pursuers of spiritual seekers, we have to see how and what lessons can be learned from each section or each verse of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, especially when there's a gold mine in Prabhupada's purports. And Prabhupada, in these sections, in the 23, Prabhupada speaks about a madman or possessed by a ghost. And as devotees were explaining in the previous days, Jagannath Ram Prabhu was explaining so nicely yesterday that Prabhupada does not hesitate to give purports on the verses of Hiranyakashipu. He does not criticize Hiranyakashipu, oh, he's a demon, we should not hear him. But because this is Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, it becomes very important, even though if it is coming from the mouth of a demon. I had this doubt. We know Hiranyaksha is none other than the Jai Vijay who are the doorkeepers in the Vaikuntha planet. But how a liberated devotee or devotees like Jai and Vijay can become such envious demons against the Lord? So Vijayadhvaja Tirtha has composed, he also has written complete Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada refers Vijayadhvaja Tirtha and another version of Śrīmad Bhāgavatam commentary from the Ramanuja Sampradaya along with Sridhar Goswami's commentary and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. Here they write, when Jai Vijay incarnates, they actually do not come into an asuric body directly because they are liberated jivas. So actually there is a demoniac jiva and they reside with them. So whenever there is a demoniac propensity, it is the demon who is actually exhibiting those propensities. It is not Jai and Vijay. So therefore, it is very important to understand, the Acharyas reveal that a devotee, a pure devotee can never be envious of the Lord. Can never be envious of the Lord. So the arrangement by the Lord is he has to be with the jiva who is demoniac and then he expresses his enviousness towards the Lord. So that kind of satisfied me in one sense. So here the demon is preaching. And many times, Sanskritam is a very beautiful language because it is based on etymology, because etymology is nirvachana. We generally don't do that in English these days, but you will see certain words in English also have derived from Latin. You see, that is called etymology. And Latin, the root word of a Latin word has some meaning to it in every word. So that's called etymology or study of etymology or nirvachana in Sanskritam. So Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha also have etymology. Now Hiranyaksha has been killed. Hiranya-aksha, if you break that word, Hiranya means what? Hiranmayena patrena, Ishopanishad. Hiranya means that which is glowing or gold, which is reminiscent of gold, which is glows, right? Hiranya-aksha means, what is aksha? The eyes, right? So one who has eyes on gold, that is Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha means one who has eyes on gold, or one who is always looking for wealth, in one sense. Or, in a larger context, one who is always looking for material sense gratification. He's Hiranyaksha, always looking for material comfort, always looking for material gratification. He's Hiranyaksha. Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu, again, Hiranya means gold. Kashipu means what? Pillow. In general sense, it is a pillow. So generally in olden days, if you have to hide something valuable, they used to put it under the pillow. Generally, if you sleep, you put it under the pillow. Slip it under the pillow, they say in English. So Hiranyakashipu is a person who will slip all his wealth under a pillow. I had a neighbor in my hometown. He had worked in the Middle Eastern region for a long time, for 20 years or so, and he had come back to India. And he was telling us that he had made so much money, all Hawala channel only, nothing in the accounts. So he had so much cash in his house, he didn't know what to do. So he had stacked the cash on his bed and then put some mattress on it. So he said, actually he had a big thick mattress of cash and he was sleeping on it because he can't announce it, otherwise he's got to pay taxes and things like that. So this is Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu mentality means to hide or to safeguard what has been amassed. So therefore these two people are good combination. You see, Hiranyaksha, one actually eyes the wealth, he amasses it, and one preserves it. Does it sound very similar to today's world? Today's world, if you see, the whole world is driven towards it. Gathering and amassing material fortune, material wealth. Practically every, especially, I shouldn't be saying every jiva, it looks like it's the exclusive contributions of the modern civilization, only of human beings. Animals don't do this. If you see a bird, if you throw some foodstuffs, a bird doesn't amass food. It in fact calls all its friends and then finishes the food that they have. But it's only humans, when you find too much, they will store. We will store something for tomorrow also. In one sense it's intelligent, but on the other sense the same intelligence destroys us. So Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha have this mentality. And when you apply the same mentality, when the scripture is preaching, you will see this today also. Today also, people are working hard, laboring hard to amass material wealth. And we also labor hard to store the material wealth. I know a few friends, few colleagues of mine, they have bought gold from India. They've bought a lot of gold jewelry. And this jewelry they only wear on special days, because they can't wear jewelry every day here, you see. But they have a lot of jewelry at home, a gold jewelry. So they can't wear. So no, he always tells me, I've got a problem now. So I can't put the jewelry at home because I can get burgled anytime. Because in the western suburbs, here in Melbourne, most of the thieves know that if there is an Indian home, there will be jewelry inside or gold inside. So they attack Indian homes with metal detectors. So they are experts. So this has happened in many houses. So they've attacked, they've broken doors and glass panes. One of the family was inside the house watching TV and the thief broke in, not knowing that there were people inside. So they were watching and he literally broke in the dining hall, and then he realized there were people sitting inside the house. So he had to run away. So, and now that my colleague was saying, it's become a great problem because he heard this happening in his neighbor. So he said, now he has amassed wealth, he has wealth, but he's now disturbed how to safeguard it now. So now he's put the wealth, the gold jewelry in a locker in a bank, and he's lamenting about that also because he has to pay fee to the bank. You see, this is the problem of today's civilization also. I was saying how beautiful this gold is, or this material wealth is. If you have, there is problem. If you don't have, there is problem. If you have too much, there is problem. If you have too little, there is problem. So in today's society also, you can see there is a conception of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha within us also. And this type of mentality is there within us. It does not mean that creating wealth is a sin or an offense, but attachment to wealth is the problem. So that's what Prabhupada writes. And that is why Prabhupada gives in this purport, Pisachi paile yena mati channa haya. So it's almost like that the jivas in this material world are carried away by material sense gratification, just as a madman or a ghost is carried away. Because, why is Prabhupada writing here, Pisachi paile yena? Why is he saying it's a ghost? What has ghost got to do with here? Correct. It is haunting us every time. And the ghost also is a very difficult predicament. His situation or condition is very predicament. And Prabhupada also gives an example of a drunkard. I was watching a talk show where Gaur Gopal Prabhu was invited. And Gaur Gopal Prabhu was giving this example. one person came to him and he said, Prabhuji, are you strong enough to break the wall with your head? Prabhuji said, no, I can't break. He said, you have done so much sadhana, you can't break your head, break the wall with your head? He said, I can try, but I'm sure I can't break the wall with my head. I'm not so strong. I have not developed some siddhis. Then this person said, look, I can break the wall with my head. You know what he did? He said he drank a bottle of liquor and then he looked at the wall, and when he looked at the wall seemed to be shaking. And then he said to Prabhu, say, look, now the wall is shaking just by me looking at it. So Prabhu was saying, so he was an illusion that actually the whole world is shaking because of his inebriated state of liquor. But he thinks the wall is moving, but he thinks just because he's seeing the wall is moving, but neither the wall is moving nor the world is moving. It's only his illusory situation that the wall seems to be moving. So our situation here, why is Hiranyaksha saying this? Yatha ambhasa prachalata taravopi chala iva. He's preaching to his mother that just as when we look at the reflection of a tree in the water, and when the water moves, the tree seems to be moving, you see? In the same way, we also think we are moving. Have you ever noticed when you're in a train and when there is another train coming and stopping next to you, and when the other train gradually moves, you feel as if you're also moving, but actually you're on a static position. But because you think you're on a train, you will feel as if you're moving. But if you think you're on the platform, you will very well know that I am not moving, it's the train which is moving. But because you are in a train, you will feel as if, is it my train which is moving or is it the other one? You feel like that, isn't it? So in the same way, because I think I am in this body, right? And this body, see, this material world has one feature. This matter has one feature. It is also eternal. Matter also is eternal, but it is not permanent. What is the feature of the material world? Matter. What is the feature of matter?
Temporary.
Sorry?
Temporary.
It's temporary in what sense? Because matter also is eternal in one sense. But how is it temporary? How is it temporary? Yes, so what does it mean? It always transforms. It's anitya in that sense. It is anitya in the sense it's not false, but it always changes from one form to another. Just like a body, Prabhupada always gives this example. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra na muhyati. Dehinosmin, dehi means one who embodies the deha, you see. Again, Sanskritam, dehi means diha upajayati. That which grows is called deha. Dehinosmin means the body grows from boyhood to childhood and then youth and then old age. You see, the body is always changing. So matter has this feature that it is always transforming from one form to another. In that way, it is transient. It's always in a mode of transient flux. So therefore, it is anitya. It is temporary, because what it is today now, it won't be later. Like I've painted this fresh surface, come after 10 years, the paint would have faded. Isn't it? So it's transient. It always has a varying condition in this material world. So Hiranyakashipu is saying, because you are bound to this body, this transient flux, you are thinking you are also changing. Therefore, Prabhupada says, Thanur achaloyam, achedyoyam, akledyoyam. You see, although the soul is unchanging in one sense. Why is it unchanging? Because it always remains a spirit. No matter where it goes, what it does, it always remains a spirit. It does not transform into matter. So therefore it is achaloyam. Prabhupada says thanur achaloyam. But because of the conception that I am this body, I feel I am changing. I feel I am dying. I feel I am taking birth. I feel I am now getting old. I feel I am becoming young and strong. All of these are material connotations, you see. And this is the foundational concept of Vedanta and Vedanta and Vedanta Sutra. That is why Krishna preaches this in the 2nd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna starts speaking, he starts speaking this foundational philosophy. And this is the philosophy which is the most difficult to comprehend and which is the most difficult to realize. It is the most difficult to realize. Because, why? Because, in fact, Sanskritam again, you see, we call jiva, right? Jiva comes from the dhatu, jiv. Is it not? Jeev is the root dhatu of jiva. Jeev is pronounced in English as live. You see that? Jeev becomes live. Therefore, they are called living beings. Jiva is nothing but living beings. Therefore, Jeev becomes live. Live means living beings. One who have to live. One who has to live. One who lives inside the body is the living force or the living entity. So therefore, Jiva means to live. And therefore, sometimes we add Atma also. Jivatma we say. Atma, there is a difference between Jiva and Atma. Atma is that pure soul or the situation where Atma is untainted by matter. But Jiva is that Atman who has become tainted by material connotations. You see, Jiva, that is why it is called as Jiva. And the highest of this Jiva is the human form of life. That's what Kapila Muni says. And Kapila Muni and the Shastras grade the Jiva based on the evolution of consciousness. Yes, Prabhuji.
If the Atma is in the heart, it is 1/10,000th of the point of the hair.
Yeah.
Where is the Jiva?
It is the Jiva. So it's a connotation of the same entity. Atman usually is referring to the pure soul. But Jiva, it becomes a Jiva when it gets embodied in the body. Right? And this Jiva is graded according to the type of consciousness and how this consciousness evolves in different beings. And Kapila Muni in the 3rd canto teaches this to his mother Devahuti. Between many species, for example, the lowest of all species is the aquatics, right? And then comes the trees and slowly how the consciousness evolves. And then you come up to, it starts from matter in one sense, you see, matter and then living beings and then evolves up to the human beings. And why humans have highest evolved consciousness? Because they can ask one question. What is that one question? Yes, who am I? Many people say this question itself is a pompous question. You see, you know what's the meaning of pompous? Pompous means it's just a useless question, you see. It is not a useless question because it is only in the human form of life. Have you ever seen an animal lament, why is there so much rain today? Why is the weather so bad? If you see in Melbourne's quite harsh, you see. Sometimes I see out of my window, there are a lot of bird nests. When it rains, when it's cold, when it's hot, the birds just go through it. They don't complain. They make some arrangements, but they don't complain. They don't seem to be complaining. They just live a very natural life. But it's only the humans who question, why this discomfort? Why so much uncomfort in my life? And that is one of the prerogatives of a human form of life, that he doesn't like discomfort, you see? And that is why a human has got evolved consciousness. But rather than questioning the discomfort in his material condition of life, we've got to question the whole material life itself. The whole material life is discomforting to the jiva. And in fact, it says this whole material body is disgusting to the soul. It's disgusting because the soul is meant to be free. It is not meant to be bound by this matter. So therefore, sometimes this body is disgusting for actually a realized soul. So therefore, that's why Prabhupada writes, he is there in this body like a ghost, a drunk, and when the jiva enters this material body, he is eternally conditioned. How is the jiva eternally conditioned? He's eternally conditioned by one thing. The conditioning is that he's forgotten who he is. That's all. Anadi avidya. Anadi avidya means he does not know who he is. He is an amsha of the Lord. Swarupena. Avidya of the Swarupa is the root cause why he suffers in this material world. Who am I? The answer to this lies in his Swarupa. If he comes to know Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishna Nitya. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give us the process or the realization that the ultimate goal of this process is to realize who you are. You know, to know who you are and to be who you are is the ultimate purpose of this whole process. But the problem is, in the Vedanta or the Vedas, there are so many processes prescribed. So many processes to realize this, who you are, your Swarupa. There is karma, jnana, yoga, Vedanta marga. Then there are so many scriptures, Vedas, Itihasas, Puranas. What to do, what to follow. So much confusion, is it not? There's so much available nowadays. And there are so many philosophers online. Nowadays, it's easy on your fingertips. You go to YouTube, you will see some Dadiwala preaching something. And people will think, oh, he's got a beard, he's got white hair, that means I have to hear him. Huh? Especially, what is the qualification of someone who is preaching these days? Generally? No, but how does one come to a conclusion that he is very good? Yes, but then? Huh? No, there's another qualification which generally people come to a conclusion on. Huh? Huh? Number of likes on YouTube. Or number of followers on YouTube. He's preaching to 1 million people. He's got 35 million followers. Therefore, he must be right. Is it not? So Hiranyakashipu also had many followers because he was preaching, I am God. The culmination of Vedanta he was preaching. I am God, worship me. Because I have overcome death. Because I have overcome death, I am God now. So therefore, worship me. So in the same way, Hiranyakashipus are there even today also. Huh? But they may be in different forms. They might not have, the canine teeth and holding a mace. They might be having a beard or even shaved head. You never know. But the qualification today is, if you have too many followers, he's very good. Just follow him. Huh? So, and they also preach in elite colleges. He's preaching in IIT, IIM. So therefore, he must be very exalted personality and things like that. So today's conception has become like that. It is very difficult to sieve through to know who is genuine and who is not. Very difficult, because again, this is the creation of illusion. Everywhere there is illusion. At every point there is illusory action happening. So therefore, a genuine seeker should be very careful. In fact, I remember I was working in the United Kingdom for a few years, and I was living a life. You know what you mean by life? Every day we used to hire car, because I didn't have a car then. I used to drive to the nook and corners of the UK, experiencing the life there. Rural life, that life, this. And I was very excited. I was saying, wow, this is such a beautiful place. And that excitement started to fade away after a year. And then by the end of 2 years or 3 years, I became so disgusted. I came back, and I knew my uncle used to go to a place. I'll not name where they used to go, but they used to go to Chennai, and they had seen Kalki Bhagwan. And they said, this is the last incarnation of the Lord, and he's come to preach to us. I thought, my God, now I need someone to guide me. So I went to my aunt and I said, can you also please take me? I need someone to guide me. So it was all fixed actually. When I have to go, tickets were booked and I was about to go. But just then, my wife said, we have never gone to ISKCON. Shall we go to ISKCON? And one day we decided to go to ISKCON, and then when we were walking out of ISKCON, we took the darshan, we were walking out of ISKCON, I saw a poster sponsored by Infosys, and the poster said, Art of Mind Control, sponsored by Infosys, 500 rupees, but it's free. You can go and sit, but Infosys will pay for you. So I said, wow, Infosys is paying something in ISKCON. It must be good. That's how I calculated, you see. Sometimes it helps. Because if you say Art of Mind Control by such a devotee, Infosys is sponsoring. Oh, that satisfied me, because I come from a so-called IT mlecha background. So I said, Infosys must be good. So I went, and thank God I didn't go to Chennai. If I would have gone to Chennai, I would have really seen Kalki Bhagwan. So it is so dangerous. It is so dangerous. And Prabhupada saved me. For some reason, I don't know what was my previous karma, or maybe some devotees' prayers came true. So this is the danger of today's happening, because the jiva does not know what to do. Jiva does not know how to lead his life, and jiva does not know he's in illusion. See, the problem is, to not know is not a problem. Is it not? To not know is not a problem. To not know that you do not know is a problem. You getting the point? I don't know, and I know that I don't know. That's very good. But I don't know, and I don't know that I don't know. That's very dangerous. Is it not? Because that will tell me that I actually know everything. Because I don't know that I don't know. So that situation is very bad. And that is what most of the jivas are today. When they come out of the modern educational system, they don't know that they don't know, but they are in the biggest illusion that they think that know everything, despite they know nothing, actually. Is it not? The modern education teaches us like that. They teach us to decry the scriptures. They teach us to decry. In fact, in India, this is what happened. After the Indian Independence Day, after we attained Indian independence 1947, one of the socialist leaders started to imitate the Western system, especially the Russian system of mass production. Then the Industrial Revolution came, the 5-year planning. When the 5-year planning came, the 5-year plans came, the factory revolution happened. A concept was seeped into the minds of the people that if you go to temple, you are backward. Don't go to temple, go to factories and work. Work hard, make your own bread. Don't go to God and pray. That's archaic. That's very rubbish, which is even prevalent today. If I know my own family, if they see me in dhoti, they say, did this guy go to Australia or did he go to some village? He's wearing dhoti. My relatives speak to me like that when they see me in dhoti. They look at me from top to bottom. Is he really coming from Australia? Or he must be lying, you see? So this is the conception of today's civilization. They think practicing your own culture, practicing your own tradition is backward. And so much ingrained this thing is in the minds that you're so fearful to even confidently practice these principles of scriptures and tradition. So even in the Upanishads, there is one story, very nice story, where a Brahmana is very poor. A poor Brahmana, although very knowledgeable of the Vedas, he will be going on the street. When he's going on the street, a rich man, is driving a chariot. And without noticing the Brahmana, he just pulls his chariot on the street. And because the chariot moves so fast, the Brahmana actually jumps off the street and gets muddied. So he becomes so sad that my life is worthless. I've spent so many years studying the Vedas and the scriptures, and this rich man just threw me off the road. So my knowledge is useless, so let me go and commit suicide. So he came to this conclusion. So he was climbing up the mountain to commit suicide, and then Indradev saw him. Because Indradev also has some anukampa on the Brahmanas. So he came as a jackal. I don't know if you've heard the story in the Upanishads. He came as a jackal, and he told the Brahmana, he said, hello, excuse me, my dear Brahmana, please stop. So a jackal is speaking to a Brahmana. Again, you see, Upanishads also don't hesitate. A jackal, an animal is preaching to the erudite Brahmana now. You see? So Indradev is preaching as a jackal to the Brahmana. He says, what are you doing? And the Brahmana says, I have spent so many years giving my life to the Shastras, and all it has given me is poverty. So let me finish this life. I'm of no use. This life is of no use. The jackal then begins his preaching. He says, have you seen me? Have you seen me? I don't even have hands like you. Sometimes if I have to eat, I can't pick it up and eat. I have to eat it from my mouth. If I have to drink, I can't drink like you with your hand. You see, you have so nice hands. You can lift the glass and drink. We can't drink like that. I have to lick from the ground. And every time I lick, I can't have enough of water. You see, it's very difficult for me. And sometimes I eat something and there is a thorn stuck in my throat. I can't put a hand and remove the thorn. But the Lord has given you hands. So beautiful your construction is. You don't have gratitude for that? And I, despite my abominable condition that I don't have hands, I don't have a mouth, I can't speak like you, I can't live like you, yet I never thought of committing suicide. But you have given such an fully formed body with hands, with legs, with so much knowledge of the scriptures. You can speak, you can communicate. Despite, why have you come to this position of suicide? Then the jackal explains, actually in my previous life, I was a Brahmana. And I was doing a lot of vakyartha. Vakyartha means I was doing a lot of debates with, and I was criticizing, envying a lot of Brahmanas, and I was ridiculing the scriptures. Therefore, I've ended up as a jackal. So therefore, you don't end up in a lower human form of life and by destroying this higher form of life. So use this life to go beyond your material conception. Find out the culmination of the scripture. Vedas is to know Krishna, is to know the absolute truth. So the jackal is preaching to the Brahmana like that. So like that repeatedly, the scripture tells us that we have to come to understand the ultimate purpose of the scriptures. That's very important. See here, Hiranyakashipu has completely lost the purpose of the scriptures. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishtaha matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedaischa sarver ahameva vedyah vedanta krit vedavid. Krishna says the ultimate purpose of reading Vedas is to know me. But here Hiranyakashipu is using the same Shastras to pacify his relatives so that he can again start his mission of destroying Vishnu or Krishna. So therefore his problem was what? His problem was he was using the purpose or the motivation of studying the scriptures was wrong. Why was it wrong? Why was his motive wrong? Why was the motive of Hiranyakashipu wrong? Correct. And why is it like that? Why is it self-motivated? Why is it self-motivated? And interestingly, he says in the next verse, he says, Prabhupada writes, 24, Evam gunair brahmyamane. He is talking to his mother that you are bewildered by the three modes of material nature. He himself is under the grip of mode of passion and ignorance, and he is telling his mother, you are actually under the mode of material nature. Look at me, I am Supreme Lord. You are under the mode of material. Can you even imagine? So these three modes of material nature, anyone who approaches the Vedas under the garb of mode of passion and ignorance, this is what happens. You see this happened in the history also. You all know Max Muller? Max Muller was appointed by the British to misinterpret the Vedas. Okay? So when he came, he tried to misinterpret the Vedas. When someone comes and approaches the Vedas to misinterpret it, what mode are they in? What mode of material nature they are in? Ignorance, or rajas and ignorance. They have a desire to misinterpret. So they are under mode of ignorance and mode of passion. Ado rajas tamo bhavaha kama lobhadayaschaye cheta etair anavidham. So one is under the garb of rajas and tamas. You see, dharmasya hi apavargasya narthorthayopakalpate narthasya dharmaikantasya kama lobhaya hi smritaha. Kama lobha. They have approached the Vedas with an ulterior motive. For them, the Vedas will never open up. They will approach Bhagavatam with an ulterior motive. Bhagavatam will never open up. They might by heart 18,000 verses. They might know all of the interior intricacies of the grammar of Sanskritam, but never will the message will come into that. Why? Because what happens? Mode of material nature will kidnap its sense. Maya yapartha jnanaha. Asurim bhavam ashritaha. They take shelter of the asura vritti. That is what exactly has happened to this guy. Despite being a son of whom? Kashyapa Sutta. He is the son of great Brahmana and Brahmani. Kashyapa Sutta. Who is the mother of Hiranyakashipu? Diti. So Diti and Kashyapa Muni, they are Brahmanas of top class. For him, this person has been born, you see, and complete Asuric mentality. So therefore, he has studied the Vedas under his father, but because he is in the mode of, his Swabhava is under the mode of passion and ignorance, he's completely misinterpreting although rightly interpreting, he's applying it wrongly. His motivation is wrong. His understanding is right, his motivation is wrong. So therefore, as long as our motivation is wrong, and that is why you see, Vedanta and Vedas and the scriptures can never be approached with the mode of passion and mode of ignorance. You see, many people went to the West to preach. See, from the 18th century they have been trying. They started preaching Vedas and Vedanta in the West. None of them were successful. None of them. Because to read Vedas, you have to be on a Brahminical platform. Brahminical platform means what? What does Brahminical platform means? To be born for a Brahminical father? No. Who is a Brahmana? Who is in the mode of goodness. Shama, Dama, Tapa, Saucham, Kshantir, Arjavam. All these are Brahma Karma Swabhavajam. So this is the Swabhava of a Brahmana. So if somebody is not on a platform of Brahmana, you can't teach Vedas and make people understand the tenets of the Vedas. But what happened? Prabhupada went. When Prabhupada went, he brought them to the Brahminical platform. How? How? Sorry, Prabhuji. Can you speak a little louder? Practice of what? Good, very good answer. Practice of chanting of the holy name of the Lord. Because that is the only possible way to bring people to the mode of platform of Brahminical platform. Because now there are no pure breeds anymore. It's all mixed. So therefore the Swabhav, the intrinsic quality and the extrinsic quality of the Jiva is all mixed. So therefore, the only way where we can purify our existence is to chant the holy name of the Lord. And this was what was inaugurated by whom? by Sriman Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyatha. There is no other way. There is no other way to what? To bring people to the mode of Brahminical platform. And then Prabhupada gave Veda and Vedanta. How did Prabhupada give Veda and Vedanta? He also gave Vedas and Vedanta. How? Sarvopanishado gavaha, dogdha gopala nandanaha, partho vatsaha sudir bhokta dugdham gitamritam mahat. The culmination of the Upanishads, he gave Bhagavad Gita. And Vedhartha Paribrimhitaha, Gayatri Bhasaushav Vedartha Paribrimhitaha, which is Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So Prabhupada gave the culmination of the Vedanta Sutra, which is Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, culmination of all the Upanishads, which is Śrīmad Bhagavad Gita. Finish. And you see his movement as being very successful even today, where people, I can only speak for myself, how this chanting of the holy name, how association of the devotees, how Prabhupada's centers can immediately bring people to the platform of Brahmana. Very easy, just chanting the holy names of the Lord. And therefore, as soon as we come to the platform of Brahmana, what is one symptom of that person? What is the immediate side effect of a person who practices Krishna consciousness? Etavadeva jignasyam tattva jignasunatmanaha. He will become inquisitive to know more. He wants to read books. He wants to know more about the philosophy. He wants to practice it more. It's not theoretical. Then he will start chanting. He will put his life into practice. He will read more. He will practice more. This is the culmination of Bhagavatam. Eva etavadeva jignasyam tattva jignasunatmanaha. To come to the understanding that tattva jignasa anvaya vyatireka yat syat sarvatra sarvada. To come to the understanding that I want to understand who I am. Where did I come from? Therefore, self-realization is the beginning of the process, and the culmination of the process is God-realization. Because self-realization in itself is not enough. Many people, even today in the YouTube, preach that the self is everything. The self is everything. Jiva, everything is a manifestation of the Jiva. It is not. Because if you come to the culmination of the self, you'll realize, who put me in this situation in the first place? If I am so glorious, why am I struggling in this body then? So there must be someone who is greater than me, someone who is more powerful than me. Natural culmination of self-realization is you will realize, actually I am no one. There must be someone superior than me. So therefore you will come to know that there is Prakriti who is superior to me. Then there is someone who controls Prakriti who is Bhagavan. You see? Daivi eshamaham gunamahima mamaya duratya. Krishna says everything is very clear. So therefore, today is a very auspicious day to know and to invoke this Tattva Jignasa. You know why? Today is Navami. Today is Madhva Navami. Today is the disappearance day of our greatest Acharya in our Sampradaya, who is Madhavacharya, who is one of the preeminent Acharyas, and one who Chaitanya Mahaprabhu glorified as Tattvavadi. Many times there is a confusion that Tattvavada is very wrong. It is not, because neither his philosophy was, see, there is many times, people say Madhavacharya is Dvaitavada, Shankara is Advaitavada. Actually, that is all wrong. Shankaracharya never in his writings taught his teachings is Advaita. He does not say if you read his teachings, the problem is nobody reads Shankaracharya's writings properly. If you read Shankaracharya's teachings properly, he clearly says, my writings and philosophy is called Mayavada Bhashya. He writes clearly you go and find out in his writings. And Madhavacharya says, my writings and philosophy is called as Tattvavada. It is not Dvaitavada. It is neither Dvaita nor Advaita of Adi Shankara. Because Advaita is also there in Madhva's philosophy. If you read Madhva's philosophy, you will see Advaita there also. But this is absolute oneness, which is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva. There is Abheda in the Abheda also. That qualified oneness, the absolute oneness is there. So it's nothing to do with Advaita and Dvaita. It is Tattvavada and Mayavada. That is why we call Shankara's philosophy as Mayavada. It is not criticism. It is actually glorification, because Shankara himself says, my philosophy is called Mayavada. It is based on Mayavada. And therefore, till date, in any of his works, he does not define what is Maya. You read Shankara's philosophy, nowhere he tells you what is Maya. The question, how did Jiva fall into this material world, is unanswered. He does not answer this. Shankara does not answer this question. So therefore, Madhavacharya, today is a very glorious day of Madhavacharya, because we'll just meditate on Madhavacharya a little bit, he was born as a son to Madhyageha Bhatta and to very, very pious Brahmins in the town very close by to Udupi called Pajaka Kshetra. Very beautiful town. If you have not visited, please do visit. They had prayed for a son to be born because they had a daughter and 2 sons had already passed away, because in those days mortality rates were high, especially during pregnancies. And they had done lot of tapasya to have a son. And then Mukhya Prana, who is none other than the incarnation, the 3rd incarnation of Hanuman, which is Hanuman, and then Bhima, and then same Bhima appears as a son in Pajaka Kshetra as Madhva. Actually, his name was Vasudeva. He was called Vasudeva when he was born. His father named him as Vasudeva. Vasudeva, his father was a Bhagavatam preacher. But when he was 5, he was correcting his father in the 5th canto. He was an expert of the 5th canto. 5th canto is the most difficult canto of Bhagavatam because complete verses, there is no verses in 5th canto. It's all prose. Prose is very difficult to chant. And Madhavacharya knew kanthas the whole 5th canto even though his father had not taught him. So, although he said to his father, "Father, you forgot this particular thing from this verse," all his relatives, criticize Madhavacharya, the boy. He says, this is Kali Yuga. The boy is preaching to the father. They criticize. Then he becomes sad. He asks his father, "Father, why did they not take my words despite my words being correct? I did not say anything wrong, right, father? I only said what is right because you had forgotten." Then he says, "Beta, son, people will only take your words when you are a sannyasi." So that became a very strong intuition for Madhavacharya to say, "I must take sannyas, I must take sannyas." So at the age of 9, when his father and mother was sleeping, he leaves his house and joins a Shankara, who is a Advaita. I'll just use the Advaita because for the ease of communication. There was a sannyasi living in his town called Achyuta Preksha. He goes and surrenders to him and says, "I want sannyasa." At the age of 9, he goes there. And but somehow the story, I'll not tell the whole story, but somehow he gets sannyas and then he's initiated as Purna Pragna Tirtha. Purna Pragna means complete consciousness, completely aware, because Mukhya Prana, Prana Deva is one of the very close associate of the Lord, very close associate of the Lord. He's one of the Maruts. So therefore, Mukhya Prana means it is the Vayu which runs the whole universe. It is just not the Vayu that we breathe here. It's the Vayu which runs the whole universe. There's Vayu inside the cosmos, outside the cosmos, and things like that. It's quite deep philosophy they have. So, on the first day of his teaching, Madhavacharya is a 9-year-old boy. He takes sannyas as Purna Pragna Tirtha. His first day of Patha is beginning. There is one Ishtasiddhi Grantha from one of the Mayavada sannyasis, and his guru Achyuta Preksha begins his first verse. And the boys are sitting, Madhavacharya is sitting here, 9-year-old boy with a stick. He says, "So glorious is this Acharya who is saying, let us offer our obeisances to ourselves. Who is the Supreme Lord? And then let us begin the Patha. Let us begin the lessons." Madhavacharya says, "Maharaj, I have got a doubt. You just now said, the Acharya is saying, let us pay obeisances to ourselves and begin the lesson." So his Acharya says, "Yeah, what's the doubt in it?" He says, "I have a doubt. You are saying you can begin the classes by offering obeisances to yourself. So does it mean when I come to the class, rather than me paying obeisances to you, I can pay obeisances to myself and sit? Or maybe you can pay obeisances to me, it's the same?" He's asking this to his teacher, a 9-year-old boy. Not in anger, not in a challenging mood, just an innocent question. This is called Tattva Jignasa. This is the root tendency of Madhavacharya. Tattva Jignasa, to defeat Mayavada, because he had incarnated specifically to destroy Mayavada. What ensues after this is Achyuta Preksha's 50-60 years of sadhana is shaken out, because what the 9-year-old boy has asked is true. Actually, the teacher paying obeisances to the student or student paying obeisances, everything. If I am God, you are God, everybody is God. Na? So who pays obeisance to whom doesn't matter. So everybody is God. So it shakes his confidence completely, and then they both don't speak to each other for 3-4 days. They don't eat, they don't speak. And finally, Achyuta Preksha surrenders. not out of anger, but he starts questioning his own philosophy to say, actually the boy is speaking the truth. Nobody had even questioned me like this. So then begins Madhva's quest of establishing his philosophy of Tattvavada, to know everything in truth. So therefore he philosophizes Panchabheda, and he defeated Mayavada in so many places and created so many disciples around the Bharata Bhumi. Two very important thing is he established the Ashtamat, and he preached this philosophy of absolute oneness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that Vishnu and Krishna, and established the Krishna, cowherd Krishna in Udupi, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took darshan of, and which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very gladly associated himself with from the Sampradaya perspective. That is why Baladeva Vidyabhushana, our Gita is dedicated, Prabhupada's Gita is dedicated to Baladeva Vidyabhushana, and if you see Madhva has written 2 commentaries on Bhagavad Gita, Gita Bhashya and Gita Tatparya Nirnaya. And Gita Bhushana, which is Baladeva Vidyabhushana's commentary, is a culmination of both the commentaries of Madhavacharya. So, and that is what we read in Bhagavad Gita as Prabhupada's translation of the Bhagavad Gita. So today is a very auspicious day to remember Madhavacharya and his glorious teachings. When I'll tell this episode and stop here, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj takes ISKCON disciples to yatra every year. There was one yatra where he took his disciples to Udupi. And Udupi, there was a very senior Acharya called Pejavar Shri. Pejavar Much. He was a very dear friend of Radhanath Maharaj. He's also disappeared last year, 2 years back. He, in that assembly, said, there is no difference between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy and Madhavacharya's philosophy. In fact, every member of ISKCON is actually a Madhva. Actually, right now as we speak, there is in the Madhva lineage, there are 8 sannyasis who is always preaching the philosophy of Madhavacharya. One of the sannyasis are right here in Melbourne today. He's preaching around in Melbourne. And he has brought a deity of Vithala, which Madhavacharya has given to his Sampradaya 1,000 years ago. And that deity is still here now in Melbourne. It's doing rounds in Melbourne. We had the fortune of taking darshan of that deity. He asked me, I went to take his blessings. He asked me, we took blessings and we said, please help us to always be in Krishna consciousness and things like that. He asked me a question. Are you a Madhva? He asked me. Then I had a doubt in my mind. Well, it depends on how you want to see it. I'm not born to a Madhva parent. His question was from that perspective. But my answer, my mind raced back to Pejavar Swami. He said, Prabhupada is the real Madhva, means the follower of Madhva. And every follower of Prabhupada's followers are all Madhvas, not only born to Madhva Brahmana family, but we all are Madhvas because we carry that flair to preach the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, and which was given to us by Madhavacharya, which was established as a Nam Sankirtan movement by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which was then adopted by Vadiraja Tirtha as Haridasa Paddhati in the Madhavacharya's lineage, we are actually in one sense Dasa Paddhati. If you see ISKCON, that's how my understanding is. When we go on the Harinam, we are actually Dasas. That's why we have Dasa as a surname. So we come in the Dasa Paddhati, where our philosophy is preaching to the masses. And therefore we take the flair that Madhavacharya instilled to preach to the masses the philosophy of Krishna, to defeat Mayavada, and to not rest until Mayavada is defeated in this world. And to preach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy, to give the holy name to one and all, irrespective of one's qualification. So my mind was racing to say, no, I am not a Madhva, but yes, I am a Madhva in the sense that I am a follower of Srila Prabhupada, who is actually a Madhva, and every follower of Prabhupada and ISKCON is actually a Madhva, because we are doing this glorious work of preaching Madhavacharya's philosophy and his invoking this Tattva Jignasa in each one of us. So we will take this opportunity to pray, and I also pray with all assembled devotees so that I continue to preach this philosophy of Krishna consciousness for my own upliftment. Thank you very much. If there are any questions or comments, we can discuss, or any corrections.
When will we be able to make this sannyas? Is he coming to the ashram, or is he having some events if we would want to meet him?
They have a center here. I don't know if he's still there. This was probably last week I met.
Yeah.
But he visits once in 4 or 5 years. He comes from Udupi.
He's left now? He's still here?
I don't know, I have to check.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to check. But he had visited with his DT, although there has been a lot of furor in the ashrama himself, because he was castigated because he had traveled beyond the oceans and things like that. But he's continuing the philosophy to preach. And this is actually being inspired from ISKCON, because ISKCON is spearheading this ardent way of preaching. And they are realizing it now that we also have to preach this philosophy of Krishna consciousness to one and all, and not just preach within ourselves. What's the use? We will not spread this knowledge of Krishna. In fact, Krishna tells to Uddhava one word. He says, the Dakshina, you know what is Dakshina? Dakshina means the return that you can give to your Guru. Krishna says to Uddhava, your Guru Dakshina to me is that you should preach this philosophy. That is my Guru Dakshina. So our Guru Dakshina for Prabhupada and our Acharyas is to preach. We should preach to one and everyone this philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And not only preach, but to practice. So practice and preach. Is it not? We are what we repeatedly do. Not what we repeatedly speak. We are what we repeatedly do. So when we do it, when we practice it, and then preaching automatically comes. In fact, the Acharyas have said, when we become Nama Premi, when we start loving the holy names of the Lord, the entire Śrīmad Bhāgavatam will be bestowed to us automatically. Culmination of the scriptures will automatically dawn to us just by connecting and practicing the pure chanting of the holy name of the Lord, by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Does it convince you, Prabhuji? Thank you. There are no more questions. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrind ki jai, Madhva Namami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.